And welcome back to I Didn't Read Your Book. I am your host, Lutch. Today, we are actually not doing a podcast, but another IDRYB live. We are waiting on Anirudh, who has some choice words to say. He tweeted out the other day that if you ever find yourself aligned with the likes of Tim Pool, that you're crazy or you did something wrong or something along those lines, and asked him for an example. And he sent me two Tim Pool clip videos from the podcast, from the Timcast IRL. One was saying how Tim is all down for universal health care until it gets to the point of deleting the private option, which makes sense to me. I mean, there was more in the video, but I couldn't discern whether there was anything else relevant in there. But again, he sent two, so I thought maybe there was a discrepancy. So in the second video, it was just all about, how he's adamantly against the jab mandates. And yeah, I didn't see anything there. I mean, it sounds like he wants people to be taken care of, but he wants people to have choice. So whenever Anirudh actually gets here, then we will figure out what exactly his big deal was. But in the meantime, maybe I can find these tweets. I don't know. I know that Tim Pool can be he can get very animated and certain things, and so it's very easy to clip him and make it seem like he's a crazy guy. He also has some not so down the line opinions, and if you don't listen to the actual way that he gets there, then it would make sense why you would think that what he's saying is crazy. But if you actually dig into the reasoning behind it, the guy makes sense. Now, I'm not some like crazy Tim Pool stan. I don't agree with everything he says, although I do agree with a lot. And I listen to plenty of other people. I don't consider myself conservative. I consider myself a libertarian. I would have previously said he's saying he's got mic issues. He'll be here in a second. So I consider myself a libertarian. I used to say left-leaning libertarian, but as the landscape has very, very, very quickly changed, I want anything I can do to distance myself from the left is something good in my eyes. So if that makes me a conservative, then I guess I'm conservative. And if that just means that I'm no longer a liberal or whatever it means, that's just gonna be what it is. I grew up in the punk and the hardcore scene, and like, the Republicans, the GOP, that was all the fascists, and it was just not cool. And like the Liberal Party was where you would be if you had any sense, because it was mostly the religious right. But that's not really the case anymore, and the religious right isn't really an issue for people. They're not like, there's no hate campaigns to get things taken down. In fact, it's the left now that's trying to censor all of this shit and embodying all of this stuff that I thought we all hated about the right as we were coming up. But he's 21 years old. I just turned 32. It's my I hate to just look down on someone's opinion because they are younger than me, because I hate when people do that to me. But it does seem very specifically with Anirudh, because he is a very intelligent guy and a very well-read guy, that it's not that he's stupid or crazy or anything like that. It's specifically that he just doesn't have a lot of real world life experience. And he's just lived his whole life in books, in academia, and so some of the things that sound like they might be good on paper or whatever, when it comes to actually having those things play out in society, it's not as simple as it seems. Like, I mean, perfect example would be universal basic income. Sounds like a great fucking idea. We all get, a stipend from the government, and we can use the rest of our time and do whatever we want. But where does that money come from? And so that's the kind of stuff. So here we have the man himself, Anirudh Garg.
Hey, Lutch. Great to be
How
here.
you doing, man?
You can hear me fine, right?
Yep.
All right, perfect.
All right, so I was vamping a little bit while you were dealing with your issues. I was basically just laying out the situation, and to be fair to you, I think we've talked about our a little bit of where this conversation starts. But to be fair to you, just kind of reiterating what I just said, that your original tweet about if you agree with Tim Pool, and then I was like, example, you gave the 2 videos, and then I didn't see any issue. So I guess let's start there.
All right,
The
I guess that's a good place to start.
So when you said something along the lines of, if you're ever in agreement with Tim Pool, you're crazy or you're wrong, or that it's no bueno. Whatever the terminology was is irrelevant. Where you're basically just saying Tim Pool is not the kind of guy you want to agree with, right? That was just
No, well, not in the sense that anything that Tim Pool says is categorically wrong. I just feel like a lot of his thought processes come from a place of extreme. I would say, I would be kind. I'm not going to call him a grifter. He seems like a genuine person. It seems to come from a place of deep ignorance and almost a incredible skepticism, not the kind that's healthy in a scientific way, but a type of skepticism that's almost borderline conspiracy theory.
so. Where do you so? I don't know what necessarily what you're referring to in the first example, but I can definitely understand where you're coming at with the skepticism thing and bordering on conspiracy. So, what? Give me an example of that, because I don't know. I can understand what you may be referring to, but I was also saying that Tim can get pretty animated, and it's very easy to clip things out, and then you see that. And if you're not a regular viewer of the show, which most of his viewers are, so he will say things without explaining the entire thing every time, because he knows that people have heard him say it before. And so that's what I'm thinking, that you have seen clips that are out of context. And but I mean, like I was saying, you're a very smart, very well-read dude. I trust that if you saw something like that, that you would look for some type of larger context. But I don't know how familiar you are with him, and so I'm just looking for something to nail down that we could talk about specifically.
Yeah, so I have before I made those tweets, I did do a little bit more watching of Tim Pool. I actually used to follow him a bit back in like 2017. I really liked some of the journalist work that he did, but after he
Switzerland, right?
started doing his streams, it just I view Tim Pool in the same category as like Joe Rogan, where once in a while good content, but for some reason going off of weird tangents that are very incoherent from a political sense, at least.
Was that an example of a conspiracy?
Oh, sure. I can give one of my favorite examples for Tim Pool is the his argument against the well. So he's ostensibly against big pharma. He doesn't want healthcare to be controlled by large multinational corporations, and using that, he funnels a lot of his distrust of vaccines. He believes that a lot of
Let's
these
use the word
vaccines that are
jab because we're on YouTube. Said we're on YouTube, so let's use the word
all right,
jab.
sorry, the jab. He believes that a lot of the jabs were pushed forward without the correct scientific backing, and because Moderna and Pfizer are making incredible amounts of money from the widespread use of the jab, that there's some sort of conspiracy to get people vaccinated for the sake of the profits of multinational corporations. And I think this is kind of an issue that I have with populists in general, which is they take real trends, which is there are companies,
So
healthcare
hold
companies.
on. Okay, so let's not go to populists and all this and that. Because the last time we did a stream, we were all over the place and went for a long time. So I know you have a hard out. So if we can stay as focused as possible. So
All right.
you are correct in the sense that Tim believes that when it comes to the profit incentives, that big pharma, that whole age old thing that big pharma, they're doing this for. Yes, there is that aspect. But if you are under the impression that that is his primary reason to be against the mandates, then you're simply mistaken. So I'm now asking,
if that is a reason of his, that's a stupid reason.
Why?
That's a very stupid reason because your argument against it's the equivalent of me saying that because Tim Pool made a couple of bad takes, every take that he is making is stupid.
How is
Just
that?
like because if Pfizer and Moderna are pushing for the widespread adoption of their vaccine, every drug company tries to lobby through the FDA, that somehow that's indicative of some faulty science. Which those are two distinct processes. One, the political process.
I thought we were talking about profits.
So once again, right, there are two drivers of the profit motive, right? The ability to get certified and sold in the market, and also being internally valid to where the product can be moved, right? If the science is underlying is fine. So if the science is concrete, then any argumentation against the science based off of your distrust of their profit motive is very ridiculous.
I heard you say that the first time. I'm asking you why.
Yeah, because the argument of the profit motive has no bearing on whether the scientific research is valid.
Right.
So I'll give you an example.
But I'm not. That's okay. So let me ask you again. Why is it incorrect or hypocritical to say that if somebody has a profit margin that they are, or if they have profit incentive, that they are incentivized to make that profit?
No. It's not hypocritical. The actual statement. Let me rephrase this. Maybe you're misunderstanding me, or maybe I'm not explaining myself clearly. Tim Pool attributing
Freudian slip if there ever was one.
Tim Pool attributing a mischaracterization, or Tim Pool attributing negative outcomes of the vaccine, or questioning the science of the vaccine, questioning that it was rushed, based off of the ability for the company to lobby through FDA regulations, is a very poor critique of the underlying science.
Okay,
If
and
the
I agree
belief
with
is
you.
the jab is dangerous, critique the science.
I agree with you.
The company.
So let me
and the FDA
agree with
process.
you. I agree with you that those aren't too directly connected in the way that you are saying they are. And this goes to my point that you are not understanding the context of whatever clip that you heard. And I'm saying this as somebody who listens to Timcast IRL every single morning in the car, and I catch at least the first 5 minutes of most of his videos, his regular videos. So his main thing about is about the mandate itself, not the jab itself.
All right.
There's he has never come out and said anything negative about the actual jab. I don't even know if he has been jabbed. But he has always been adamantly about, I'm not a doctor. You talk to your doctor. You do what's right for you. I don't. I'm all of that. That's
Okay.
he can't mention the jab without saying that. So that's one thing. It's about the mandate, not about the jab or the efficacy.
All right. So if you
aside from that, hold on. Aside from that, that can be true, and you can be in favor of the mandate or you can be against the mandate, while also pointing out that, hey, it sure is convenient that these guys who would make billions of dollars off of this thing happening are pushing for the thing to be happening. That makes sense, right? If I would make $1 million if you bought every piece of garbage in my house, then it would make sense that whether or not the garbage is good for you or not, that I would be pushing that garbage because I can make $1 million off it.
Right. So now my question is it reasonable?
But wait. You just wait. You just glossed right over that. You just said right, but that was one of your points. You said it was a ridiculous thing.
Here's why that's a ridiculous statement. Because given that Pfizer and Moderna have incentives to make sure the vaccine mandate runs through, whatever their statement should be taken with a grain of salt. Their speculation is as worthless as Tim Pool's speculation on the effectiveness of the jab. He said, go talk to your doctor. Likewise, if we're talking about policy, we should probably look at the epidemiological effects, the sociological effects, the health effects on a broader level, and oppose it based on that, not necessarily who the boogeyman is that is proposing this policy.
This
Do
is
Pfizer and Moderna
complete
have
straw man. You're the one putting in the fact again. Do we agree that these companies have a profit incentive for this jab?
Yes.
Okay, so that's on the table. We're all agreeing that that is a fact. Nothing, no conclusion of whether you should get jabbed, whether there should be a mandate, whether there should be exemptions. None of those things, in Tim's eyes, is based on the thing that we all just agreed is true. So we agree that it's true, and also separate from that true thing, he has these other opinions. You are the one connecting them.
So when he says that you should be distrustful of any mandate because a company is pushing it, he's the one making that connection, is he not?
Say that again. What
if Tim
no.
Pool? Okay.
If he is saying that among all of the other reasons to be skeptical, there is a profit incentive, that is yet another reason to be skeptical. In a void, that's why there was no big push against literally anything else that Big Pharma has done in the last 10 years. Because though we are skeptical of Big Pharma, they haven't been doing this. And at no point did Big Pharma not have that profit incentive. So that skepticism has been something that, and again, this goes back, and I brought up how I, am doing my best at all times with you not to brush off your opinion because of your age. But I do, you were a child at the time when the phrase even Big Pharma and it was so closely tied with the left, and this was almost right-wing conspiracy that there was no such thing as Big Pharma. And so now for you to be in 2021 being on the left saying we should trust Big Pharma, and then looking at Tim Pool who has had skepticism towards Big Pharma all of his life, like the rest of all of the liberals until 2015, I don't understand where there's an issue there.
I feel like this is a bit of a mischaracterization because I'm not saying that we should trust Big Pharma or that we should distrust because it's Big Pharma. The decision for vaccine mandates or the efficacy of vaccine mandates should be based where the incentives of Big Pharma are irrelevant. So we should not listen to them in a way to arouse some sort of suspicion on the efficacy of the mandate or listen to them as the primary trusted source.
Right. That was what I said. Is that aside from the fact that we agree they have the profit incentive, no conclusions about the mandate or anything that
exactly. So if you say
because
that's
of that.
One, if you're saying one of the reasons is to be suspicious because of profit motive, that's ridiculous.
I still don't understand why. That's the third time you said that, but you haven't explained why.
So you're saying, all right, let me try to break this down as simply as I can.
I mean, we
can cover this up. If we make the assumption that the profit motive is somehow skewing the results or shifting the discourse, at least politically, of the vaccine mandates, then we're ascribing that Big Pharma, their political influence, is somehow a contributing factor, and because we should be distrustful of Big Pharma, wherever their political influence is, that's one thing we should be concerned about. My argument is that should be irrelevant because the things that we should be concerned about is cost efficacy and health efficacy. Focusing on like a bad guy like Big Pharma is harmful to the actual calculations that we need to make, which is cost and health efficacy.
So I'm still not understanding where the issue is. Are you saying that that Big Pharma, there's no issues with corruption in like the FDA and Pfizer and all of these companies that have had been in cahoots and have had lobbyists and all of that stuff for the like I said, when you were in elementary school, if you were a liberal, F big pharma was something that you could just say and know that you would have in common with somebody else. And so for you didn't have that, but coming up and understanding that all happened, and now this is just the first time where where big pharma is being pushed in front of your face, and it's something that is much clearer than, let's say, the opioid crisis, where it's not as simple, I guess, to say that the efficacy of the jab is extremely high, side effects are extremely low, all that stuff. So this is a much clearer case for you. This isn't the only case of do we trust big pharma. And so if you're saying you're looking at this one case and saying the skepticism here,
I'm asking you to trust the evidence and data, not big pharma. I never did once say you should listen to what.
Yeah, but big pharma is the one
Pfizer
who
or Moderna CEO.
Yeah, but that's where the evidence is. That's where the bullshit is coming from. And
no, it's coming from clinical trials.
Yes,
the largest
paid
vaccine study
by who?
To this day.
All of the trials on everything else that we aren't even allowed to mention, because they would take this stream down, are not being talked about, and they go against quote unquote big pharma. That is the science, but because it's not your science, and you are meaning the establishment, then it doesn't count.
Okay, do you accuse me of being part of the medical establishment because I read the Lancet? I'm really confused.
No,
by
I
what
said
you
being the establishment. I mean, you're fighting on behalf of the establishment.
So, would you trust a paper that comes out of the Lancet, one of the largest clinical?
It depends. I would have to read it. I would have to look at the methodology. I mean, probably yeah, but I mean, so let me answer your. So I'd say probably yes. Are you saying that no matter what, if they came out with a publication, that you would follow it blindly?
I would probably look at the methodology.
Okay,
and
so then we have
reviewed. So
okay,
for the most
so
part,
we have a certain level of skepticism, right?
The skepticism. So I would have an ordinal order for the level of epistemology, or like the level of publication that I would trust the most.
So yes,
the most trustworthy thing is a peer-reviewed meta-analysis. Below that, there are other types of studies, but that would be the most. So in peer-reviewed meta-analysis, we found.
I understand how research works. That wasn't the question.
Right.
The question was I don't even know the publication you are talking about. Lancet, whatever. You asked me if they came out with something, would I trust it? Long and short,
I could say without a shadow of a doubt.
And I was saying, well, it depends. And so the implication with saying, if this trusted establishment put something out, that you should trust it. And so that begs the question then, if they put something out and I had something else from a maybe lower tier source that refuted what was put out by them, would you automatically take them what they said because they're an established authority?
Well, then if there was a case there was conflicting literature, and I would immediately look at a meta-analysis. I would look for some other thing that would explain why there's a disparity between both of these studies.
Let's just say we have two single studies.
If it's in healthcare, then I do not have the education to make a strong belief on which one is accurate.
So then how does that?
I would have to find someone way more intelligent than me to figure that out.
I agree. So how does that change with the jab?
All right. Generally, because we have the consensus for the jab, the efficacy, cost efficacy, and healthcare efficacy of the jab.
Fair enough.
We have an overwhelming scientific consensus.
Yeah. No, that wasn't a challenge question. That was just
Yeah.
So then as I was alluding to before, the efficacy it was never up for question. The mandate is what was being questioned. And
so let's talk about the mandate.
So earlier, the example came up, because you used the term coercive tax, that not being jabbed you are creating a coercive tax on the rest of society and
Oh,
driving up the,
externality, but yeah.
and so but either way, you're driving up the cost of healthcare by not being jabbed.
Yes.
That was what you were saying. And
Objectively
so
true.
you are saying that because of that, if you're unjabbed, you have only two options: get jabbed, or you do not have the right to work because you're driving up healthcare costs. And so my response to that was, well, obesity is a problem that has these not similar, but also has these externalities, and is far more common than what we're talking about. And so I asked you if a fat person should have have their right to work taken away.
Yeah. So
And you
generally,
said,
a policy like that, I would support it if it was
well,
NPV positive.
because you said you would say this publicly. So
Yeah,
I asked
I
you.
would support that same policy if it was NPV positive.
So you are against, which we agreed that you are against the right of fat people to work.
No, I am for. This is this exact. Maybe you might have misunderstood. I am for using.
I asked you in three
coercive
different
taxes.
ways. I asked you in three different ways, dude. This is I like. Come on, don't. If you're gonna do this, let's do this.
Wait, we can pull this up.
Yeah. I mean, I could read it to you right now.
You can share you can share the Discord from my server.
Okay, but I have it in my hand right here. I'm just saying.
All right, read it out.
You said, one, the jab mandate presents a choice: get jabbed or lose your job. It's a tax, coercive, on the unjabbed. The same way higher premiums on the obese is a tax. Choice is endemic to both transactions, but so are consequences. My response: so fat people should lose their jobs? And you said, if that is successful in reducing healthcare costs and NPV positive, it's on the table. So it probably won't be cost effective, but
it's not NPV positive either. But yeah, if it were, yeah.
So what?
There's no inconsistency here.
Okay, fine. So what's the weight limit?
Again, I'm not a healthcare scientist. I don't have the exact numbers for that. I would just say that if it's NPV positive.
So just explain a little bit about NPV positive and net, well, all that stuff.
All right. So if we're making any type of decision, we're deciding if the costs outweigh if the benefits outweigh the costs. Costs are incurred at front, and benefits are incurred later on. So if I were to take a policy like, how much would it cost for me to give everyone the jab? That's a cost we pay immediately on. And then what is the savings that I get in externalities and lower healthcare costs, in lowered mortality, increased productivity? What are all the benefits that I get there? And doing the math and discounting it based on inflation or whatever we would use as a discount rate, we'd figure out, is this policy something worthwhile doing? Now, we have to also acknowledge if it's internally valid, that the policy works. So for example, fat shaming is not very effective at getting people to lose weight. Often studies have shown that it makes people depressed and more likely to binge eat. And you may end up making the problem worse, which is why I'd never be in favor of fat shaming, because it doesn't work. If it worked, I'd be in favor of doing it. I would get canceled by the left immediately. Likewise, shaming people into taking the vaccine, if it works, and people get the vaccine, yay. If it doesn't work, I'd encourage people to not shame people to get the vaccine. At the end of the day, I care about the end result. If there was a magic pill that would eradicate obesity, I'm fine with the government mandating the same way that we mandate the current vaccine.
I just want you to sit on that for a minute, because you realize the difference between and we're not talking about Rona, but just because the concept of being jabbed for the stuff we used to get jabbed for makes a lot of sense because of what it is and because of the how terrible it is. We all made that. It went through the proper legal channels, and we've all agreed to that. How is being obese at all in that same category?
What do you mean? If a person is obese, they're driving up healthcare costs for people around them. This is a well-documented phenomena.
I understand that, but so are a lot of other things. So are people who drive recklessly. So are people who drink too much. So are people, so again, where is what is the line? what is the criteria for things that the government can force people to do or not to do
Sure.
because of because it's good for
I've even
everybody
tweeted this to you. One,
except for
it
the
has to be
people.
constitutionally acceptable. And two, it has to be net present
Since
value
when is
positive.
forcing medical procedures constitutionally?
Oh, very constitutional, actually. I was looking into this. Sturtevant v. White in 2011 found by the Supreme Court that vaccine mandates are constitutional. Even Justice Antonin Scalia defended that. And vaccine mandates have been constitutional since 1905. We have pretty, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, so take this with a grain of salt, but it seems like we have very strong literature on precedent that states, yeah, vaccine mandates are constitutional. So given that it's constitutional and it's incredibly beneficial in net present value, it's a no-brainer.
So let me just pivot a little bit and maybe look at this in a different view, because where I'm coming from is obviously a liberty-minded individual that, regardless of what is good for the guy down the street, I am an American. I am a human being. If I want to get as fat as fuck, if I want to sit here and do heroin or whatever, then the government works for me. They don't have the right to come and tell me to do any of that. And so how do you propose that this, which clearly is not you can see that the protest all over. So even if it was gone through the proper legal channels, which it hasn't, then I'm just lost as to where the liberty of all of this falls into this. Like,
wait, even now under the vaccine mandates, you have the liberty not to take the vaccine. I mean, you
okay,
lose your
but that's
job,
not
you have a lot of other
okay,
issues.
but that's not really a choice. You obviously need a living.
Well, yeah, that's why I said that it's coercive. But I am fine with using
That's
coercive.
not. So that's what I'm asking you. That's what I'm asking you about. Why don't you? So let's use that. Why don't you have an issue with the government being coercive with a medical procedure?
Being generally speaking, the cost of having an overburdened healthcare system is excess mortality. One, that's an issue. Two, is that given that we have limited healthcare resources, I want to avoid healthcare triaging. So the protection of human life outweighs the minor inconvenience of getting 2 jabs and maybe a third, a booster.
Well, now it's 4.
I haven't heard of a 4th one being approved yet.
Look at your passport. How many lines are there?
I mean, I haven't seen my vaccine card in ages. I live in Texas. I haven't needed to pull it out for anything.
There's 4 lines.
All right. I'm scheduled to take the
Fauci
third
has
jab
just
on Friday.
Yeah, well, that's not going to be your last. Fauci just came out saying that Omicron is going to need a 3-shot inoculation. So that's another 3 to schedule in.
All right. If it's as easy to get as the previous doses and the previous jabs, I'm fine with it. Let's do it. No
it's
problem.
Just here. 15 days, right? It's just it's just a mask, right? It's just 1 shot. It's just I'm alarmed at your lack of concern for just giving this power to the government. That's what that's where I'm coming from, and you don't seem to be contending with that. You seem to just
Article
be fine.
4 of the Constitution gives the government the right to tax and spend. Anytime the government pushes a policy like a vaccine mandate, it's a tax. If you can afford that tax, that's great. If I can afford to not work, then the vaccine mandate is irrelevant to me. I can do whatever.
Okay.
Right? It's a tax.
But who is the majority of people who are unjabbed are lower class.
Exactly.
And
most people cannot afford the tax, so they will do the government policy.
But you now want to make all of those lower class people of color unemployed and not have the chance for employment.
I don't want to make them unemployed. I want to make them vaccinated. If threatening them with being unemployed is what's going to get them vaccinated, I really wish it didn't come to this position, but it has.
But you don't want to fat shame. Fat shaming, no way. But forcing people to get the jab.
Work. If fat shaming worked, I'd do it. It doesn't work.
Everybody who used to be fat that I ever know, and obviously anecdotal, but everybody who I ever know, anybody I know who's been fat, who no longer is fat, has attributed fat shaming, and it said something along the lines of, "Thank you for not letting me continue this way." Along with
Fat shaming is work on me. I used to be obese.
a myriad of high-profile celebrities, influencers, and so, statistically, maybe it doesn't
It
work
does
for.
not work.
Oh, it doesn't
Statistically,
work
it
for
does not
everyone.
work.
No, okay, but
It doesn't work for most people.
Okay, exactly, but this is what my point. This is precisely the point with all of that stuff, is that to those, what, let's say it's just 100,000 people in the history of the universe who have gotten healthy because they were fat shamed.
Mm-hmm.
To those 100,000 people, the statistics are irrelevant because the method worked.
See, I
And
don't
so
see the 100,000
to say it is not an effective method is only true in one sense of the word effective, and we're talking statistically. And so anecdotally, it absolutely does work. And so for those people who are now in a healthier place and are healthier weight, for you to say that fat shaming doesn't work is just incorrect.
No. Fat shaming is not a reliable method.
That's a different thing.
No. So when
that's
I say
a
that it
different
works,
claim.
okay, let me amend this because it's a language issue on my part. When I say works, I'm talking about from the perspective of government policy. So for something to work as in terms of government policy, it has to be reliable. So not like an interpersonal level, but on a broader national level.
Okay.
So I'll amend my statement there. It has to be effective.
Okay. So the point is, though, that the unjab shaming is pretty strong out there, and so.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't know if it is very effective or counterproductive. If it came out that that shaming the unjabbed is making them more hesitant to get jabbed, I would immediately stop doing it, and I encourage everyone to stop doing it.
That was like last month's news, dude. That's. I mean, personally,
I haven't seen a strong study on it.
Again, we're not talking. That's we're in that different realm. We're talking about individuals on an individual case. Why are individual people not taking this jab? And so, yes, there is a collection of a collection of individuals, but each one of those is their own case. And so, in the case of me, when this all started, I was just like, I mean, yeah, I'm not really worried about it. When they, they'll come out with a jab, and then we'll be able to go back to normal life. When it comes out, then I'll just wait until it becomes an inconvenience, and then I'll go get it. Then all of this stuff started coming out, and Fauci was saying one thing, and then things were changing, and then the rules were different in different places, and the numbers didn't match the things, and the elites were not wearing masks, and all of this started happening, and then all of the jab propaganda started, and now I'm freaked the fuck out. I don't know what to think, what to believe, and until I can see why, it has nothing to do with the trusted science behind the jab itself, because it has to do with the lie that is being propagated. And so until I understand what that lie is and where it's coming from, then I'm not going to participate in something that is part of that. I don't know what the relevance is. I don't know. And so I've been fine the whole time. So as an individual person, that is completely logical to me to not figuratively and literally inject something into my life that I don't trust or that I have reason to distrust.
I find this very ironic because, correct me if I'm wrong, but you do vape, right?
Nope.
All right. Yeah, so I figured. If you were to put other substances in your body, the issue is that the hesitancy.
I do harder drugs than vaping, if that's where you're going.
All right, yeah, because people will put stuff into their body. That's way worse than this vaccine.
I've done heroin before. I mean, but nobody was forcing me to do it. And so again, we come back to the choice. So if I would also be against a heroin mandate. Just so we're clear on that.
Well, I would be against a heroin mandate too. It
Okay,
doesn't
but
seem like it benefits anyone in any way.
that doesn't matter. That is my point. It doesn't matter. The government doesn't have the right to mandate these things. And you have your case that you cited from the 1920s. I peripherally know about it.
1905 and 2011. There are two cases.
I'm not sure about the 2011 one. Why don't you? What happened in 2001?
Yeah. So I remember I forgot the name of what's this called? Not the dissent, the affirmation. I forgot what that was called. It was written by Justice Antonin Scalia. He basically stated that the government has a right to mandate 100% inoculation. Like, let me see if I can pull up that quote.
Because my point is that I know in the one from the turn of the century, it was the which I still don't agree with. But as far as I understand it, it was either get the whichever jab it was, or pay a $500 fine, which would be which would be closer to like $5,000 today.
It'd probably be more than that.
Again, that's immaterial. Point being, you can either do what we say or pay a fine. While that's still completely against my values, and I would probably not pay that fine, and I would probably go to jail over not paying that fine, because I'm a principled individual and I can't be peer pressured into changing my principles. The fact is that is very different, even though that's already outside of what I'm comfortable with. That's very different than now saying, do this or you don't have a right to society and making a livelihood. And you're just totally cool with that. People who are already down and out.
I mean, if you're unable to pay the fine and you end up going to jail, then you are already excluded from society. For the incredibly poor, I don't really see a difference between both those scenarios.
You don't... lay that on me one more time, because it sounds like you just said if you're poor, it doesn't make a big difference if you can't pay or if you go to jail.
No. So
I want to give you the
No. Let me rephrase that. There doesn't seem to be much of a distinction if you get jailed for not being able to pay the fine versus being pushed away from certain public rights because you refuse.
I agree. They're both wrong, but one's more extreme.
Yeah,
I agree. There's not that much of a difference. That's why they're both wrong. That's my point.
I generally think that jailing people to get them vaccinated is not going to be a very effective way of getting more people vaccinated, so I'm against that. But here's the issue with principles. Principles are pretty irrational when it comes to resource allocation. Because unfortunately, this is the fundamental myth, this fundamental truth of economics. We have infinite needs and limited resources. If we're trying to allocate resources, especially healthcare resources, we're going to have to try to reduce healthcare costs. The vaccine mandates are effective ways to do that. Not reducing those healthcare costs means we have to triage and deny healthcare for other people, which is going to create excess mortality somewhere else. So we're going to make that trade-off either way. We're protecting more people's right to life by making sure that fewer people are hospitalized due to COVID. It's from a ethical standpoint of maximizing human life and
I understand what utilitarianism is. Like I'm down with that. That was Hitler's thing. You know, we get rid of all the bad ones and then we'll have an Aryan race.
Hitler was not a utilitarian.
I just had to throw that jab in there. No pun intended. No, obviously I'm joking about that. But
because the issue is we're always going to have trade-offs between rights. So we have to quantify how much is each right worth, and let's maximize those rights.
So I agree with you. And so when it comes to an illness with a 99.99% survival rate of anybody below the age of 60 or 65 with no comorbidities, then trading off your right to live in society and make a living doesn't seem like a fair trade-off.
Yeah, but we're not just worried about mortality, we're also worried about hospitalization. There were, I think, in 2021 so far, there were 526.
I just don't. That's not
individuals who were hospitalized.
I don't care.
Due to
I don't care because
corona.
I don't care because again, there's a million and one other things that drive up healthcare costs that we don't legislate and treat this way. We don't
Well,
say, again, bringing it back to
it's
being
not
fat.
physically
We don't say if you have a BMI of a certain level that you don't get to have a job and you don't get to be part of society. You don't get to go into restaurants. You can only go to the gym until you're below the threshold of what we find acceptable, so that you're not causing the havoc on the rest of society, and then you can be part of it. Otherwise,
Believe me, if there was a way to go from
we don't use people with bad driving records and say until you can XYZ and get rid of your points. We allow people with points on their who have shown that they have moving violations to get right back behind the wheel and drive. We allow people who have been in DUI accidents eventually to get back behind the wheel and drive.
Yeah, we usually have them go through being
unjabbed
and
being unjabbed is way worse than all of that.
No, it's just very cost effective to do this. We have no magic pill that gets rid of obesity. We have a magical shot that turns someone from vax to unvax. It all comes down to costs. It's very cost effective to do this program. It's not very cost effective to shame people so that they are no longer fat, or to force people to lose weight to maintain a certain BMI. We just don't have a cost effective method of doing that. We do have that for the vaccine. If there was a magical pill, we'd be doing that same thing with obesity. We would be doing.
I mean, I don't disagree that people could take that magical pill. I am just against the part where you want the government to mandate it. That I mean, that's really the long and short of it. And we have some cool comments here. So I know you got to go soon. So why don't we read out some of these? Yeah, so Mr. L, thank you for joining us. So Mr. L says, the argument of vax choice and mandate is one on several levels. On the surface, it is an individualism versus common good argument. That's what we were talking about before the stream, actually. But on the political level, it's a rights versus authority argument. And he goes on to say, the problem with allowing the federal government to enforce mandates is the slippery slope. Give them the authority to do X for this reason, and they'll do it again for another reason in the future. As my good friend, well, not my good friend, but someone I admire very much, Dave Smith, and actually, I don't know if it was Dave Smith or Michael Malice. There's nothing so permanent as a temporary government restriction.
Yeah, so I've never believed the slippery slope argument, because we have a pretty hard stop in that it's whatever's constitutionally acceptable. So it ends there. Now,
but we're already down that slope at what is constitutionally acceptable, what individuals don't accept, but it is accepted by the Constitution. So we're already there. And again, Mr. L, a good example is what happened post 9/11. They used the authority to spy on suspected quote unquote terrorists, and then the whole NSA was born out of that. No, yeah, Watergate is that's perfectly on point. And it's never defined because they can, this goes to, another larger point, which we won't be able to get into, but the idea of changing language and now to be an anti-jabber means to be against mandates. And so that used to be...
Or the other way around, be anti-mandates being anti-jab?
No, literally well, I mean, we've said it enough times, but they changed the definition of anti-vaxxer to include anybody who is against the actual jabs or the legislation.
I mean, it depends. If
and you have no issue with that.
I don't necessarily have a reason to be angry
because
with it.
You haven't. This is the stuff that you don't see when you have been living a certain way, and you are adhering to certain social norms, and then someone on high comes and changes it and now puts you as a second-class citizen, when you have been a moral, all that good stuff all the way along, and now it's been decided from on high that you are a second-class citizen, and everybody else gets to agree with that and treat you as such. This is what we're talking about.
But going from second class back to first class is getting 2 jabs.
I'm not going to do that. That's the point.
Well, so then you have now you're choosing to be the second class citizen, right?
Only because you're the one making my choices second class. What if I said
Yeah.
everybody who has a guitar hanging on their wall is second-class citizen? Well, you're choosing to be a second-class citizen.
Yeah.
That's
And
this is what I mean about changing the words matter. And so when you change the what things mean, then you can twist things any way you want, and you can make me into some dirty heathen of a scumbag of the bottom barrel of society, if you just change the words that actually describe me into something that is bad. That's how language works.
again, is that
What do we got?
do I see that as intrinsically wrong? No.
So, and that's it. Just, I mean, I don't see how you can say that
I'm driven by end results.
changing words to achieve a semantic point is in good faith. That's not how people communicate. That defeats the purpose of words.
So we redefined what. So legally, it used to be a long time ago that only certain acts were considered sexual assault, SA. We've broadened that definition so that we could better go after predators.
Okay.
Before, molestation was not considered sexual assault. We've broadened that definition.
Come on, guy. Out of yourself a little bit. So they changed it, right?
Yeah.
We're on
so
YouTube.
they changed
We're on YouTube.
that.
I'm just trying not to get pulled down.
Okay. Yeah.
So they changed SA.
They changed Mo to SA as a category of SA so that they could better go after individuals who were harming the kitties.
Okay, and so you see that in the same vein as changing a very specific term to mean a very specific thing, to just lump in people who are not in that category, but you politically want them to be associated.
I don't see that as
the same thing.
bad.
I'm asking you a question. Do you see that as the same thing, or is it a reasonable update to language that we now include Mo under the SA?
I can't do it just analytically. I would need to look at the data.
It's no data. It's a question of what you think. Do you think adding Mo under the category of SA is
it's been very effective at catching predators.
Right. Okay. So that is a positive. Language is always changing. That is a positive, organic, and functional change.
It's not organic. That was something we legislated. Legal language is something that
right, but it came up because of we're like, hey, there's this thing that's Mo, and it's not in the SA laws. So we figured out organically, okay, we need to go and through the proper channels to do this. Yes, but I'm not saying like it just came out of nowhere. I'm saying
I'm confused. I'm saying between organic and inorganic in this case.
So inorganic would be exactly what I'm talking about, where the definition of a jab and the definition of a mandate, at no point were being confused. At no point was anybody being helped by the fact that they're being lumped together. But for political purposes, they were lumped together, even though by any other means, being anti-jab and being anti-mandate are two very, very different things. I would say most people who are anti-mandate are probably jabbed, but we have a population of jabbed anti-jabbers because somebody wanted to change the words so that they could get their political message across. That is simply not analogous to widening the SA umbrella. That they are just completely different things. And if you can't, I mean, I don't know how else to break that down.
I mean, would you consider someone who refuses to jab their children but they themselves are jabbed an anti-jabber?
I wouldn't. I mean, no, I wouldn't. But
I would. Well, so see, we already have disagreement.
So
there's already confusion of what an anti-jabber is. There's always going to be that confusion with words.
Anirudh, this is what I'm telling you. That is the point. That is what they want. They want the confusion to be there. This is the very conversation that they want. Everybody who is pushing this agenda. I don't know who they are. Do you want names? I don't know. Otherwise, they probably would be not in the position they're in anymore.
I mean, if you don't have names, it just feels like a weird.
So are we really okay? So then we're saying that there's no powers that be that are higher than the individual.
There are powers, but they also have names. Like, for
Okay.
example,
So
the
list
NIH
everybody
probably has a.
so you think it's effective right now to be listing the name of every single person that has some authority in jab legislation, or are you being facetious?
Wait, no, I think that it's
So
ridiculous to
when you
say
say
that there
who
are.
is they, you know that it's they. We just don't. I just don't have their names in front of me. I don't know.
No,
I
no,
mean,
because you say they as though there's some sort of conspiratorial backroom that they're
you
changing
are you.
language.
That's your interpretation. I said I. All I said was they, and you've just agreed with me that. So do you think?
So,
I mean, even Biden himself has said they're not allowing me to answer questions. They're not. There's a they. I don't know who they are. I just know there's a they. It's quite obvious.
do you feel like the they that is making decisions on what is considered unvax is the same they that's scheduling Biden's press conferences?
Say that again.
Do you believe that the they that is deciding what unjabbed is supposed to mean, and the they that is scheduling Biden's press conferences, do you believe that they're the same they?
Depends. Depends on how wide you want that umbrella. Because when I say they, in terms of being treated a different way based on my jab status, then yes, it includes anybody who is buying the message that's coming from on
Am
high.
I part
So
of they?
you think I'm a selfish, dirty person,
No.
but I'm not jabbed. And you said anybody who's not jabbed is a dirty what was, I forget what the other word you used, but you think it's
Well,
immoral.
I do think that you are contributing to bioterrorism in the United States by not being vaccinated.
Have you
Uh,
have you asked about whether I have a medical or religious exemption?
do you have a medical exemption? I don't care about religious ones.
Why don't you care about religious ones?
Uh,
Do we
that's
not have the freedom of religion in this country?
oh yeah, you have the freedom to practice your religion.
Yes. Okay. So if it's against my religion, then why
Is
don't you care about that?
does being vaccinated prevent you from practicing your religion?
It doesn't matter.
Well,
If
so
it
the
if
government
it
cannot.
does,
No,
if it does, then that's an exemption. That's what a religious exemption means. What do you think?
no. So the government is very clear on this in the Establishment Clause. The government cannot prevent you from practicing your religion. If
Right.
you being vaccinated means
Right.
that you can never practice your religion,
Right.
only then can that be
Right.
there could be a religious exemption.
Right.
For most people, that's not the case. I don't know of any
For me, it
religion
is.
that
My
that's the case.
religion, it doesn't have, there's not a approved list of religions. There's freedom of religion. So the Lutch religion is that you can't you cannot be a part of Lutch's principles if you go and let yourself become peer pressured into doing something that you don't feel is right.
So, Lutch, instead of peer pressuring you, can I give you an analytical argument to go get the jab?
I mean, you can, but I already agree with the fact that the numbers make sense. Just like I agree with the fact that the numbers behind the numbers support spending more time in my apartment and less time in my car, right? That would be overall that there's a lot more that could go wrong while I'm on the road, right?
Yeah.
I don't need a lecture on why that is the case in order to decide whether I'm going to take a job that requires me to be on the road all day.
Because here's the thing, right? If I were to say you're not vaccinated or not jabbed, sorry, I'm making this mistake.
If you
I'm
slip,
bad for
then you
live streaming.
slip. But if you, I mean,
Yes, if you're not jabbed, then I would simply show you the evidence for how much money that would save or how much money would prevent in a future hospitalization, the discount rate of that. I think I did the math before. I don't know you're in New York, right? I don't know for New
Jersey.
York specifically. You're in New Jersey?
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know about the Northeast, but in Texas, for example, the average cost of COVID hospitalization is about $52,000, and the vaccine reduces your chance of hospitalization by, I believe, 10%. So in the consequence of you get COVID, you've net saved about 3,900. You have to discount a little. So that's a savings done just by getting the jab.
Okay. So what
If you're being a rational actor and you're trying to maximize any type of well-being economically, you'd be very irrational not to get the jab.
Okay. And I don't even disagree with that. So let's take the specific example again, because we are talking about individual, we are talking about people, we are talking about lives. We are not just talking about numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The mother who has 3 young children. Now in New York, 5 and up, you've got to be jabbed. She got a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and an 11-year-old.
Okay.
And so we said, all right, let's go with the 11-year-old first, just to whatever. The 11-year-old is now in a wheelchair because of myocarditis or whatever, some side effect that is extremely rare, but
Mm-hmm.
so is a child catching Rona. And if they do, the chances of them dying are literally statistically near zero.
Okay. So I've
So,
seen the.
so rational, not rational, numbers, efficacy, all of that. What can you say that is wrong with that mother not wanting her other two children to get the jab?
Yeah, not getting your other two children is incredibly irrational. I could understand if it's being terrifying, because we know this. The risk of myocarditis is actually greater from contracting COVID than from getting the vaccine. And even if you account for the likely chance of contracting COVID, your child is still safer vaccinated than unvaccinated, with specific regards to myocarditis. There are studies on this too. I can send them to you. We've done the discounting, we've done the math. Even with the amount of information that we have, it's still the rational decision.
For you to say, I have 3 kids. I just did this thing to my one kid and it ruined their life. It's irrational not to do it to my next and youngest kid. Is irrational.
Replace COVID with sending my kids to college. One person drinks too much and they die of binge drinking. I should not send my other kids to college. It's ridiculous then, and it's ridiculous with COVID.
Going to college is not a direct cause of alcohol poisoning. Those are not
No,
analogous.
but it increases your chances of alcohol poisoning.
That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about things that increase your.
Likewise,
we're
the
talking
vaccine
about causes and
increases your
effects.
chance of having negative responses.
Okay,
to
but the kid
stimulants and
already
causing
got the myocarditis, dude. The kid already got the myocarditis, and so you could even say statistically, those other 2 kids would be the least likely to get.
No, they're just
the
as
side
likely
effect.
as the other kid.
The statistics of 3 children in one family are higher than 3 different families.
No. These are independent events statistically. So if you have a 1 in 1,000,000 chance of getting myocarditis,
In her life, they are not individual things. This is again coming down to the entire point of where I think there is a gap in your thinking. Everything to you comes down to what is the overall picture with everybody and this utilitarian view. And some things are just more personal than that. And because you haven't had, you haven't had a myriad of different types of jobs and coworkers and bosses, you haven't had, you haven't. I mean, I don't know about your romantic life, but as far as I know, you're not married. You don't have any kids. You don't have many. I don't know how many of your friends have kids. But these are things that the things that you're saying. Normal people who are you are putting into this box because of this one thing, not being jabbed. Normal people of all different types of ideology and whatever, people of all walks of life would have similar types of concerns, at least one something here or there that I'm throwing out. And all of them, specifically the last one with the mother who now has a child in a wheelchair because of this specific procedure. And you're saying, oh, it's irrational not to give your other kids this same procedure that just put your child in a wheelchair.
Yeah, 100%. The third leading cause of death in the United States is medical misdiagnosis. These are when doctors mess up and kill their patients. That is not an argument to not go to the doctor. Likewise, let's do a statistical example.
Okay, no. Wait. I'm going to use that example.
Right.
So if you went to a doctor, that's a perfect example. You're right. It's not a reason not to use doctors. But if you went to a doctor and that doctor gave you misdiagnosis, would it be rational to go back to that doctor, or would it be more rational to go to another doctor, or, as we're saying, not go back to that doctor?
Well, the most rational thing would be to sue that doctor for medical malpractice, but also, yeah, go to a different doctor.
Okay, so that is more analogous to what we're talking about, because there is
so
no
one
other
vaccine
jab.
causes-
There is no other jab that you can go to.
Wait, there are so many jabs. What are you talking about? There are at least, I think, 20 different vaccines. I believe there are 3 in the US and a couple more across continents. There are multiple different jabs.
But I mean, See, this is what I mean. Having trouble seeing. I feel like you're not coming in good faith.
I am
I
being
mean,
in as good faith as possible.
so we're saying the variability of different jabs is analogous to the variability of different types of doctors.
Well, there aren't as many jabs as there are doctors, so it's a lot
Exactly.
less.
That's my point. There's only one type of Rona jab. That's what we're talking about. There's different brand. There's different. Yeah. There's different brands. There's different whatever. I don't know the ingredients.
Many of them are using completely different technologies.
Okay.
So this was actually the issue that we had with the J&J jab, where there was a worry that it was causing blood clots. Yeah. But the statistical significance of those blood clots was less than the statistical significance of blood clots in the general population
Why
for
does
the
that
individual
matter?
vaccine.
I don't care about the statistical significance if I'm living that out.
Sure. So if there's a
And so
1 in a million chance of you getting myocarditis from this vaccine, then
and it's
that
something
one
that
in
I
a
don't have to
million
do,
is
then yes, I'm not. There's a 1 in a million chance that a lot of things that I do that
right.
or
So
that I could do that I don't do, and
the cost of, let's say the cost of getting myocarditis is about $800,000 throughout your entire lifetime, and some number of dallies, some number of years lost from your life. Uh, we then index that against the much greater likelihood of hospitalization and the cost associated with that, and we'd figure out, okay, which is more cost effective. In every calculation, the vaccine is still NPV positive, even factoring in the adverse side effects, the allergies. I had both COVID and I got the jab. The side effects from the jab were worse for me than COVID, mostly because I
which
took
is
the jab
another
immediately
reason
after I
why
got
not
COVID.
to even bother. Like I may as well just get COVID then. Why? If it's not as bad as the jab, why wouldn't I just get COVID?
No, the side effects. I was
Right?
not sick. I
Yeah.
just gained a lot of weight. Uh,
That's not. I don't get sick. That's not something I want to choose to do. And
yeah, I had a
so
negative reaction. Some of it might have been genetic. Some of it might have been because I got vaccinated a month after COVID. I don't know. Uh, Regardless, I'm still going to get the booster because it's a ridiculous reason to not do something that's very cost effective, net beneficial, just because the side effects that have already been discounted in the costs seem very scary. That's being ruled by fear and not rational
I don't
decision
disagree
making.
with you. I don't disagree with you at all. But there are plenty of things to in your life as you get older. I'm trying not to do that. So that's it was about to sound like that. But there's plenty of things in
I
life
feel like people have
where
done that to you, and you were pretty
yeah,
pissed off when they
yeah,
did it.
yeah. That's why I heard it coming out and I was like, let me turn it facetious because I don't want to be an asshole. But there's plenty of things in life where you will have a unfounded fear of doing, and you make decisions based on that gut feeling that you don't have the numbers in front of you. And when you make enough of those decisions, you're forced to make enough of those decisions. You begin to trust or have a certain level of trust for your instinct. And this is something that you clearly are not taking into account because it's not like in the before time. Think of how small the group of anti-vaxxers really were. It was, I mean, not a tiny group, but I mean, there wasn't, it wasn't a huge thing.
Unfortunately, the internet has made anti-jabbers very, very powerful. That's a downside of the internet being a thing and social media being a thing.
Yeah, because why would we want Americans to speak if they don't agree with us, right?
I mean, I'm fine with American speaking. It's just really
You
sad.
just said it
It's
was a
one of
bad
the.
thing.
I mean, there are negative effects. Uh, it would probably be a worse thing to take away their rights to speak because we can calculate that pretty easily too.
Yeah.
Um,
Which you would have been, but again, so you say that now, but if we had had this conversation about boosters 1 year ago, 6 months ago, this would have fallen under the category of the stuff that you would agree is bannable, dangerous, misinformation, all of that. And now the conspiracy, quote unquote, all of them have come to fruition.
so this conversation, I mean, I'm at least trying to be in like good faith to make sure that there are no conspiracies. But yeah, I feel like you said some very conspiratorial things in this conversation,
I don't
which would
disagree, but my
probably
point is
be.
that things that seemed conspiratorial 1 year ago are reality now. So if something seems conspiratorial now, then in 1 year, it's very likely, based on the previous year,
I
that
feel
there's
like
a
if I
chance
had
that
this
that will,
conversation a year ago, it would sound just as equally conspiratorial to me.
well, but then you would have been wrong because we would have been talking about whether people are going to, it's just going to start with one shot and eventually they're going to have boosters and they're going to have mandates. You're going to have to show your papers. And you're going to be like, no, that's all conspiracy theory. You're being
We knew
conspiratorial.
from day one, because of how variable this virus was, that we might need multiple different types of vaccines. It's why we had multiple different companies working together for vaccines for creating different types of dosages and
But so
dosage schemes.
so there was no rule on YouTube that if you mention a booster that you would get your channel taken down. That if you would mention a mandate, you would get your channel taken down. If you, I think currently, if you use the horse dewormer name, then I'm pretty sure you at least get somebody's attention. These are things that were called conspiracies the same way. I don't really know, and they turned out to be completely exactly on the nose. So where is my question is, where is your confidence coming from to assign? Oh, okay, all the old conspiracies about this very thing that I thought were wrong that have come true. I was wrong about those, but I'm right. I would love that level of
Most
confidence.
conspiracy theories tend to be incorrect. There are a couple that are true, but if I were to make like a guess, it's more likely that conspiracy is untrue.
So you're going back to the numbers of what the statistics on.
I always go back to the numbers, man. You know me by now.
This is your problem, though. That's not a good thing, dude. That's not a good thing. That's a very limited way of looking at the world.
Lutch, where
This is
numbers
what I'm telling you.
exist, they're the best way to look at the world. Numbers don't exist everywhere. That's why it's sadly I can't use them all the time. But where they
Okay,
exist,
so
use
fine,
them.
fine. I agree with you, but just because there are numbers about something doesn't mean the numbers tell the whole story. We did this in the last time. We went over it for a long time, so we don't need to go over this again because you've already agreed that there are plenty of situations that the numbers and the statistics don't matter. And we are talking about individual people's lives and individual people's choices. And so it doesn't, whether it's 0.00001% that something bad can happen, even if that's one person in the entire country, to that one person, all your statistics and everything have no bearing on their experience. Dustin said it perfectly. Numbers do not explain what my rights should be. I have rights, and it doesn't fucking matter what your numbers say. You do not have the right to trample on what I want to do with
So we
my
might
body.
disagree on like the realm of someone's rights. I believe that largely I would restrict the realm of rights to the Constitution. Beyond that, I would need pretty strong arguments. Like, for example, the Constitution doesn't have a right to water. I think that that's very beneficial.
This is all
We can
because
quantify
you
that.
have not had things in your life that have been trampled on by the government just yet. I guarantee you, if I show you that tweet that you said "Yay for tyranny" or "Yay, I'm a tyrant" or whatever,
That was facetious.
and you were being facetious, but you were also, on point. You were legitimately cheering for tyranny. I guarantee you, in 10 years, if I show you that tweet, that you will cringe. I guarantee you. I'll put $1,000 on it right now.
I don't think I would ever find government intervention in the market a tyrannical thing. I am an economist. Half of the stuff that we do is talk about government intervention in the market.
Oh, okay. I don't
in
understand
the
the
market,
point of that.
yeah. So in the market of individuals who are choosing to get vaccinated or not get vaccinated, that's a marketplace. There's an exchange of vaccines for individuals. Government intervention to get people vaccinated, so long as it's NPV positive and it doesn't trample on constitutionally protected rights, there's just not a very strong argument to oppose the mandate otherwise.
Freedom. It's
Freedom is
cliche
something-
and it's trite, but it's very much that simple.
Yeah,
that is not how this country works. That's not how
it's exactly how this country works. For the past 100 years, we've had vaccine mandates.
not the, but not not but by decree, not by decree, not with 1 year old jabs that are
Wait.
have yet to be
These
fully.
vaccines that we have, the mRNA ones, they are better than most of the vaccines that we've ever made throughout history. These are the most effective, some of the most potent vaccines that have ever been developed by humans. This is a true revolution in technology. So,
The
I mean, the argument is if those vaccine mandates were acceptable, these new ones with even better vaccines should be more acceptable. These vaccines are safer than any
Okay,
other
so then
vaccine
why do
from
they? Why
previous.
do I need it shoved in my face that I need to go and make this choice? Why aren't we going through the same channels?
Wait, the vaccines are FDA approved, or at least the Pfizer one
The
is. I
mandate.
don't know.
I'm talking about the mandates.
Yeah, because people aren't getting vaccinated.
Okay, because
I
we
wish.
have the freedom to choose not to, and
Yeah.
Biden doesn't have the right to decree a new mandate. That's how it works. If you want a
Wait,
mandate, you have to go
so
through the proper
are
legal
you talking about
channels.
like ethical rights or like constitutional rights? Because he has a
Both.
constitutional right to do it.
No, he doesn't. It's already been stricken down by the Supreme Court.
Wait, which
Every
vaccine
the
mandate has been struck down by the Supreme Court?
I would have to look it up. I don't know, but I mean, it's a if I'm remembering correctly, it's a they said it was a state issue, and so that
All right, yeah.
that he can't use an executive order to whatever. I don't know the ins and outs. I don't. This is why I wanted
Oh yeah,
our
yeah. So
first.
yeah, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal, yeah, it made the issue because of what- the federal supremacy clause. Yeah, so this is a state issue, not a federal issue. Yeah, so I would push for governors to do it instead of Biden.
Fair, and that would be fair. And I think that you know, that wouldn't work because most people don't want the mandates. I mean, that's it.
But for example, if a governor like
But you want it, so it's okay to trample over what they want.
no, no. So,
Even
for example, if Greg Abbott, I don't really like the man, but Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, says, "Oh, I'm going to do a vaccine mandate," I'd be like, "Yo, go, Greg Abbott! You're finally doing something great for a change." And I
you'd be
think you'd be okay with that because it's done from this on the state level, right?
well, I would be, but my point is, I don't. I think you would be in the minority of people who are saying, "Oh, he's doing something good," because even people who again, I don't have the numbers. I'm sure you could find a poll that would support this, but the majority of people that I have heard, listened to, talked to, seen express an opinion, have been emphatically for the jab and emphatically against the mandates. And
All
so
right.
I think if this were to go to through the proper legal channels, then most people in any given state would likely shoot it down. And if they didn't, then that's fine, because then that doesn't there's still the rest of the country, which is still not cool to it's just not cool to have that. But at least there's a way out. You're just saying, I decide now that because of your opinion, you don't get to be a real American.
When did I ever say that?
Not
I
you,
never said
Biden.
you weren't an American. I mean, I will say this is probably the one of those inflammatory things that I say. People who refuse to get the vaccine are bioterrorists.
That's such an empty thing to say. Like, that's not what that word means. Like, that's just not what that word means. And this is, you're talking, you want to come in, and I'm sure you would go.
They're not legally
buck wild.
bioterrorists.
You, Jesus Christ. I'm flabbergasted at how flippant the left is with just using these grandiose words and just flinging mud. You just called me a terrorist, bro.
A bioterrorist, yes.
That's still a terrorist.
It's a subclass of terrorist, yes.
And you're just okay with throwing that around.
Oh, definitely.
Do you think you genuinely think I am terrorizing people by only interacting with my dog and people who invite me into their homes?
So
I'm a bioterrorist.
not in a legal sense, not in any type of like you're violent, but you are contributing to
What?
the
Well,
creation
what
of
other
new.
sense is there? What other sense is there?
I guess the colloquial sense that you are contributing to the possible
Oh, so the thing
creation
that
of
you
new.
made up for this conversation.
No, just my personal feelings.
But that's your person. So based on my personal feelings, colloquially, you're a bald white guy. That's the exact equivalent to what you just
Yeah,
did.
and they both are
That's the
equally.
exact equivalent to
Yeah,
what so much of the problem with the left is that you just make up words. You use these anti bizarro words. Anti-racism is treating everybody by their race. Anti-fascism is using violence to enact your political policies. I mean, it's ridiculous, and the fact that you could say this is in good faith, and I'll take that back because sadly, I believe you are here in good faith.
oh, I am in good faith. I
I
try to
and I do
be.
believe that, and that's what's even sadder about this. Because if you were trying to be um, if you're trying to be malicious, I could see what you were doing. But the fact that you are using those same tactics and you think that you're being fair and you think that that's intellectually honest means that your frame of reference for what is acceptable civil debate is so very low that you think that's acceptable to just, oh, I don't know, you don't agree with me, so you're a terrorist. That's a good faith debate?
Lutch, when I say that a person refuses to getting vaccinated contributes to the possible creation of new variants,
I know what you
the
meant.
logical
That's
conclusion of
not what
that
you
is.
said.
Wait,
That's
so
not what
that's
you
the reason
said.
why
We're
I
talking
consider.
about words.
So the reason why I use the word bioterrorist is because I believe that not getting the
Is because it
vaccine.
works. Is because it's
No,
got shock value. Because
no,
if you said
not
what it
getting the.
really meant, then it wouldn't have that much vavavoom, right?
Lutch, let me steel man this. The reason why I say that you are a bioterrorist is because you're contributing to the possible creation of new strains by not getting vaccinated and
That's not
not
what steel man
inculcating
means,
herd
but go
immunity.
ahead.
So the best explanation of that, it's a very weak reason to call someone bioterrorist. I'll admit that, but the reason why is because it's in the creation of new strains. So someone could unintentionally be creating bioterror by not getting the
How many
vaccine.
how many Omicron deaths have there been so far?
I think they've been very low. Omicron seems to be very,
Oh,
very infectious, but not
oh,
very lethal. I don't think there have
hmm.
been many.
Oh, that's not very common for a virus, though, is it? Or is
No,
that
there are
typically?
some
Oh,
vaccines that spread
oh,
very quickly that are
oh,
volatile.
oh. Okay. So what you're telling me is that I'm aiding the pussification, if we can, of COVID, and you by having your defenses up are just leaving the barbells there, letting Rona just get stronger and stronger and stronger. You're the bioterrorist.
I mean, if that's your interpretation, though
It's not, but you
epidemiologically,
see how you can't. There's no. I mean, I assume that you know that I was being facetious. I mean, did you?
yeah.
Okay, I was assuming that you know that, but the fact is that you literally did the exact same thing to me, but you weren't being facetious. Do
No,
you not
if
see
you're
that?
look, I would
Do
disagree
you
with
not?
your
It's
rationale,
a
but
yes
I
or no
feel like
question.
your
Do you
friend
not see
disagree.
that? Do you not see that you just did the exact same thing that
Oh
we
yeah, I
both
see.
laughed
I
at
see.
because it was so ridiculous, and I was being facetious, and you weren't, and you did the exact same thing using the exact same terminology based on the exact same topic. You don't
So
see an
if you
issue
were
with
even
that?
if I do not see an issue if you were being serious. I do not see an issue. If you would like to call me a bioterrorist, I more than welcome it.
That's not the question. The question is, do you see that we both agreed it was so ridiculous and I didn't need to explain that I was being facetious based on what I was saying, and that you said the exact same thing to me in all seriousness?
So the reason why I considered what you said
I
ridiculous is
understand the
because
reason.
okay.
What I'm trying to draw attention to is that when I say it about you, oh, ha ha ha, of course not. But when you say it about me, of course, yeah, no, yeah, dead serious. I'm dead serious, dude. You're a terrorist. You're a bioterrorist. Not legally, but I mean, like, you are, like sitting down and murdering babies. I'm like,
All right. Then let me amend this statement. I think it was very responsible for me to say that you were bioterrorist, and I apologize for that. I, in hindsight, I think that was a pretty stupid thing to say.
but you still believe it.
Do I believe it? I mean,
I don't want you to lie to me. The
I
issue
actually
isn't
don't.
that.
I'll give
That's
you
the
the honest
point,
answer.
dude.
I'm
I
not
don't
sure.
need your.
I'm
I
not
don't need
sure.
a. I don't need a fake apology from you. I'm a big boy. I don't
No,
care
I'm
what the
not sure
fuck
if
you
I
think.
believe it. I'll have to think on it a
Fair
bit
enough.
more. I'm not sure
Fair
if I
enough.
believe it.
I think you do believe it, and I think sadly it's not because you're a malicious person. I think it's because you listen to people who are malicious and see the line to get your emotions up this way, and your willingness to engage with people like me on topics like this.
No,
And part of
I think
that
you're
is
definitely right. I am malicious towards social conservatives or people with some certain social conservative beliefs. I'll agree with that. I'm definitely malicious.
oh, okay.
No, I'm just agreeing with you.
Okay. So, but um, the point I was making was that if you're yeah, I mean, why? So let's dive into it. Why would you be malicious to a what do you define as a socialist conservative? Because as much as I find socialist libertarian to be oxymoronic, I also find
No,
socialist conservative to be
not
oxymoronic.
socialist, social conservative.
No, but you call yourself a socialist libertarian, do you not?
Libertarian socialist. Generally speaking, simplified that I want workers who produce things to eventually own the means of production. I'm a big fan of worker co-ops. I like social democracy.
How many of those are working right now?
What do you mean? Worker co-ops?
Yeah. How many of those are functional?
There are quite a few that are functional.
So then
Actually,
why the fuck do we need the government to tell us to do it if people can just do it?
wait, I never said that I want the government to force worker co-ops. I'd like
What
to
do you
create
think, sir?
incentives for worker co-ops.
Okay.
Hopefully, one day we'd move to like a market socialist society, and we can abolish government. Dream. That's going to take a while. For now, I'm in favor of social democracy and the eradication of poverty.
So, I mean, that was just kind of an aside about why I don't think it makes sense. And again, the words matter. And again, you're listening to people who are just using words at their convenience. So you're using oxymoronic terms, not even realizing it. But why are you malicious towards somebody who is a social conservative? Do you believe that everybody who considers themselves a social conservative to be a immoral person?
Oh, actually, I believe that regardless of what your political views are, I believe that there are a lot of conservatives who are moral. Actually, I think there are a lot of conservatives that I know personally that are more moral than even the most liberal people that I know.
I very much agree with that. I'd say it's usually
So when I'm
let's not
malicious
go
to
there.
social
But
conservatives,
the question was why? Why are you malicious to them?
because generally they support policies and actions that create harm in society.
And what does being malicious do to change that?
Essentially making sure that they have very little power. So I want to essentially break the
So
back of the
might is
Republican
right
Party.
in your world.
I want conservatives to have very little power. Yes.
I did not.
Might is
So
right.
why wouldn't? So again, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. This is the same the same argument about fat shaming. That if you're fat and there's pressure to not be fat, that doesn't work. But somehow it works with the jab. Somehow it works with political opinions. I'm wondering what's the difference. Where do you okay? So where are the numbers that say shaming conservatives for their beliefs turns them into liberals?
No,
Because
I
usually
don't
it
think
seems
they're
to be
very
the other way
strong
around.
numbers.
Usually it's liberals shaming other liberals, turning them into conservatives. That's what I've seen more often. But since you're the numbers guy, I will
I don't
give it
think
up to
there
you. Where
exists
the
a strong analysis on that. I'm operating off of intuition and guessing. I'm not.
But I thought
exactly
you were a
sure.
numbers guy. I thought that was such a ridiculous, irrational thing to not look at the numbers. Like there has to be numbers on this, right?
I've looked for numbers. I haven't found any strong numbers. So until those numbers come out, I'll going off of gut instinct until I have numbers to prove otherwise.
That makes you a bioterrorist, man.
Definitely, man.
It's just it. How do you not see that? That's precisely the same argument that I have for making my own medical decisions. I don't have the numbers on the whatever is happening with the narrative. I don't have all the information, is what I'm trying to say. I don't have all the information that I need to understand what is going on with this, why it's so shady, why the FDA covered this up till 2076. That's
Okay.
fucking shady. And until I understand why, until I understand who's benefiting and for what purpose, then I'm just going to step back. I'm not doing anything to anybody.
All right. Look, Lutch, I think we might have different disagreements for what it counts as cost onto society and cost on the individual. I do think that the skepticism that we would have to the absence of evidence, not necessarily our ability to understand the evidence, are two different things.
That's a great point, Dustin. Sorry to interrupt you, but that is really a fantastic point. Imagine mandating chemo for cancer patients.
I mean, if it was effective, chemo of
so you don't think somebody who has a terminal disease has the right to just die on their own?
Oh no, the right to death is there. So if a person needs treatment for cancer and chemo is very, very effective, I'm fine with mandating it. Generally, but I would leave that at a doctor's discretion.
You just spoke out of both sides of your mouth. If you're mandating the chemo and someone decides, I don't want to go through that, I want to spend my last months as a normal person, I don't want the chemo, you're saying, fuck you.
For a person who wishes for treatment, and chemo is 100%
We're not. You're
effective.
Saying we're talking about mandates. We're not talking about wishes. We're talking about
so
people.
There are conditions for why
a mandate is irrelevant to somebody who wants what's being mandated. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
There's no. We don't. Okay, we agree on that. So we're not talking about the people who wish they have it. We're talking about the people who don't want it. You want it to mandate. You want to mandate.
I'm not in favor of that mandate. For chemo as it is.
So you are taking back what you said, or you're saying. Okay.
The statement that I made is, if these conditions are met, then I agree with this. Those conditions are not met in the real world. So yeah, I would not be in favor of a chemo mandate. That would not be effective at anything.
But again, why does effective come before what the person wants?
If the person wants to survive, if the person wants to live, then they have the option of chemo.
They have the option. They're not going to live. It's terminal cancer. They are going to die.
If they're going to die,
let's say 6 months. They're going to die in 6 months.
Then it's up their discretion between them and their doctor.
Okay. No and so what if then what if they're going to live for a year?
Once again, between them and their doctor.
Okay. So what if they're going to live for 5 years?
I don't see a cost-effective reason for the government to get involved.
So where's this mandate? You just said you're in favor of a mandate, and then you're saying you're not in favor of a mandate. You're saying you're in favor of a mandate, but then not if it's this year.
Let me amend the statement. I was in favor of a mandate if that chemo resolves cancer. If they're terminally ill, they're going to die either way.
Proven effectiveness. Look at the numbers.
No, chemo is not 100% effective.
Nobody said 100%. Nobody. Who said 100%?
Chemo is not. No. Okay, let me rephrase this. I'm being stupid here. Chemo is not the same as a vaccine because it is not effective at no cost. Effective. It's not as effective relative to the cost as a vaccine. Therefore, it is mathematically stupid to mandate it.
That's so. It's so funny that the original tweet that you. I don't remember if it was your words or the original tweet that you quoted to say about Tim Pool was talking about mental gymnastics. The mental gymnastics, they call me Jesus in Discord. So, the mental gymnastics you just had to do to say, no, I don't think that we should mandate chemo. Where you first wanted it to be happen, and then you didn't want it to happen, and then you were putting a time on it, and then we're not putting time on it.
I'll take the L on that one. That was a mistake on my part.
And these are, and the point, I'm not just trying to pick on you. I'm trying to point out that this isn't something that just happened there. This is a recurring theme in the points that you make. That they're based on a very narrow view of whatever we're talking about. And usually it's the economic side or something to do with numbers and something like that. And so what I'm saying to you again is that how much school do you have left?
Last semester, I'm graduating in May.
So when you graduate, if you, and I'm not being facetious. If there is any possibility that you have the time to either travel or take time out or do anything besides go into econometrics for at least 6 months to a year, I think it would change your life in amazing ways. And you're a super smart dude. You're very well read. You'll have the same job opportunities at 23 that you will have at 22. I genuinely think that you are the kind of person who could be a real force for good or a real force for bad, because the things that you're saying are not coming across to you the way that they come across to other people, and you not
That's definitely an
realizing.
issue on my part. No, that
Yeah,
is an issue on my part.
and that's why I'm not. That's why I've I'm being serious, and I'm talking to you as a friend. That the idea that you have espoused these things and you don't see how they are not congruent with just civil society, and holding these blanket opinions about groups of people, things like that, and just looking at everything based on, well, what are the numbers? That is not a good way to live. That is not a good way to view people in general. It's not, and when I say good, I mean effective. It's not effective. It's not an effective way to learn about things, especially because you first started by saying you're malicious to social conservatives, and then 2 sentences later you said a lot of the conservatives are a lot nicer than some of the liberals that you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to. I think as much as anybody who has a very robust academic career, that is, the opportunity cost of that is that you're not out there living in the same way.
Right
All
now
the
I'm
time
just
that.
applying for jobs in tech, but yeah,
Yeah, but I
that's still
mean,
not living either.
well, and I mean, I'm not saying like, oh, you're a loser, you don't have a life, but I just mean like, if you're doing, you're a smart guy, you're going far in school. Obviously, that takes time to read and do homework and write papers and stuff. So I mean, it's not a negative or a personal attack. It's just a fact of, if you're doing one thing, there's just every other thing that exists, you can't be doing it.
Mm-hmm. All right, then I'll take your criticism at its word. Thank you for being good faith with me. I'm sorry if I would have said some stuff that defended you, but I think my broader points about the efficacy of mandates still hold, like mathematical sense and economic sense. But thank you for having me on. I do have to head out in a minute.
All right. Well, so yeah, let's see what Dustin says before we leave. I hate that it comes to this, but I do see it. I don't like the idea of dismissing someone because of their generation, but that's not what's happening here. There's flawed logic.
Well, Dustin, next time I'll try to be better at explaining myself. This was definitely me taking the L on the latter half of this conversation.
And I will say he was the guest in IDRYB 06. What was it? I think it was 06. Number 6. The Greater Man is a great book that he wrote. And we had a great conversation about that. So he's not some dumbass. He's a smart guy.
I am a dumbass.
You're kind of a dumbass, but in the same way that we're all kind of a dumbass. You're a smart dude. You have a very good way of filtering things into what you know, which is very good. But it seems, and I'll end on this, it seems that instead of just letting that information come and automatically go to your numbers filter, there should be another filter in front of that says, does this fit in that numbers filter? Or do I need another way to get things? Looks like this camera died.
And yeah, my camera's dead.
So here. So why don't you shout out your channel, your socials and such?
Yeah, I am Anirudh Garg, official on Instagram and on Twitter, and I am the Anirudh Garg, the host of The Dialectic on YouTube. I have to head out. Thank you for having me, Lutch.
All right, man. It was a pleasure.
See ya.
We definitely will continue this. All right. So, Dustin, do you want to hop up here? If you're still watching? I think that, for anybody watching the replay, the main thing I want to to get across certainly is that I definitely believe Anirudh is wrong, but if you could see at the end, even though he does think I'm a terrorist, he believes that, and he was realizing in that moment that, like, he knows me well. I mean, he doesn't know me that well. We did our episode in like August or September or something, and we've kept in touch just about different political things. And the shy little bitch. We kept in touch, and it just, a lot of things that I was saying he would come at in a weird angle, and then he would come at it in a weird angle. And I'm really interested now for the panel that we're going to do with a couple of other guys. There's going to be another lefty atheist, so I'll have an atheist friend, and then another middle-aged lifelong conservative, as well as another dude who is a Tim Pool fan. I don't really know about his personal politics, but I found his book through the Tim Pool Cast Castle vlog. We're gonna have a chat about where we're getting our news from, and I think that really has that's an important thing to talk about, because at first I really did think that he was being an asshole, that Anirudh was being an asshole. And as I see him just straight faced saying these things, I'm realizing he's not being an asshole. He really thinks these things, and he really doesn't think that these are bombastic things to say, that they are unfounded things to say. All of these things didn't cross his mind, and so that's why I say, sadly, I do believe he was here in good faith. Somebody led that kid astray. And he has, all the good intentions in the world. And my dad thinks he is going to end up being some kind of policymaker in Washington, because he is very well read. He knows his stuff that he knows very well. But that's why I want him, not even for that, if that's what he wants to do, great for him. I do want him to do that. That would be a great prestigious thing. Dustin's saying here, I think he stuck to his guns pretty well and didn't resort to petty arguments, but I do think he's missing a piece of the puzzle. Aside from calling me a bioterrorist, I agree. And that's exactly the analysis that I've had, that as smart as he is, whether it's his age, whether it's the political climate, whatever it is, he's viewing things through a very small keyhole. And because he knows every inch of what he can see from that keyhole, he's comfortable there. But what I was saying at the end about, does everything fit into that box? I just don't think so. So, Dustin, I think you were the only one here for the whole thing. I really, really appreciate that. Don't forget to hit that like button. Anybody else who's watching the replay, thank you so much. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and IG at IDRYBlutch. And don't forget about those support links. I am broke as fudge. Discord, I do have a Discord server. There's nobody in it yet, but I would definitely like you guys to start it up. And more than that, I would love for you to hit up my Bitcoin address, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, any of those things. But you don't have to do that. If you just want to sit at home and think about how awesome I am, that would be awesome as well. I will see you guys. What day is it? Do we have another one? Yeah, we've got IDRYB 14 coming out in 2 days. If you didn't see the sneak peek, the reading the back of the book, it is out now. Last video uploaded to the channel. Check it out, and I will see you guys next time.